Hello, welcome everyone. What is this? Our second, there's our third webinar for the year. So thank you so much for coming and joining us for an Ethos webinar. Today is HR on the Line, the playbook for eliminating compliance risk. So we've got some really fun content for you today. I'm so excited to dig into it. A couple notes. We love using the chat. Please talk, hang out, network, make connections, ask questions. We love answering questions while we're going. So please feel free to liberally use the chat as we go. I am Austin Townend. I'm the growth marketing strategist for Ethos Benefits. So I'm on the marketing side. I'm here to make this as fun as I possibly can for you guys. And we have a couple incredible guests that are going to be bringing a lot of knowledge and insights for you today. So first up, let's get into the agenda. So we've got the introductions. I'm going to be explaining and introducing our guests for the day and our hosts. And then I've got a fun little brain teaser. And then after that, our main guest, Lori, is going to be taking over for what you see like 3 through 7 and 9 there. And she's got a lot of amazing content for you. So I'm so excited to go through it all. And yeah, let's get into our first introduction. So first up, we've got Chelsea Reiches. So she has spent enough time along HR teams to know that you're already doing the work of 3 departments. You're caffeinated on a prayer, and you're still somehow expected to understand a 200-page health insurance renewal by Friday. She's been helping employers build benefit programs that actually have their best interests in mind for years and years now. So consider Chelsea your secret weapon. I'm just the guy who makes her look cool. Chelsea, take it away.
Thanks, Austin. Hi, everybody. These intros, I don't know if for those of you that attend our webinars, we do one every single month, and Austin always has a surprise intro for me. And I'm always like sitting on the edge of my seat, like, what's it going to be this month? But nonetheless, thank you, Austin. Guys, I am so excited about this month's webinar because I have been such a fan of Lori for so many years. The level of expertise that we're going to hear today, the depth. And one of my pet peeves with webinars is when it's super high level and you kind of walk away like, cool, but what do I do, right? Like what steps do I take? And at Ethos, we're really, really big on that actionable insights, data-driven decision-making. Like what are we actually doing next? So I've been lucky enough to work with Lori. As Austin said, Ethos Benefits is a fiduciary-based benefits consulting firm. We work with mid and large market employers nationwide on fiduciary decision-making, which we'll go into a little bit today, why that's so important in this new landscape. But let's get to our guest, Lori Kleinman.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Lori. We're so excited to have you today.
Thanks. I am so excited to be here. I'm just putting some things in the chat myself. I first met Chelsea and Donovan at HR Florida, and we just clicked immediately. And then now we use them at the client that I do a lot of consulting for. They continue to be a go-to resource for HR Florida. And now I'm excited to work with them on their monthly webinar series. So thanks, you guys. It's great to be here.
Amazing. Yeah, it's funny, Lori, because this is our first time really meeting, and the amount of times that I've included you in content and in what we do, and so it's great to actually meet you in person, or we'll call it in person, wherever we're doing here. Cool. Well, I've got a quick thing to share with you guys, but here is a synopsis and a video on Lori. Please enjoy.
81, when she packed her bags for college at the University of Illinois, expecting to get a business.
Here we go.
Meet Lori Kleinman of HR Topics. Lori's HR story begins in 1981 when she packed her bags for college at the University of Illinois, expecting to get a business degree and become an accountant just like her dad. But numbers weren't her thing, so with her degree in industrial sociology, Lori started her career as human resources director in her family's commercial photography business, employing 250 team members in 5 states. Working her way up to VP of Operations, she learned the business of people.
Unfortunately, technology made the world of commercial photography obsolete. So I started my own HR consulting firm for small businesses, growing that enterprise to 7 employees working full-time in my home and just under $1 million in sales. But that wasn't sustainable. So
in 2007, Arthur J. Gallagher purchased Lori's consulting company. The entire team moved into the Gallagher Benefit Services operation and took the business model of HR consulting to small business nationwide. Lori left in 2013 and returned to her entrepreneurial work. Her new organization, HR Topics, works to support HR professionals and small businesses with actionable tools and tips to drive results. And to back up all the experience, Lori has a master's in HR and holds SPHR and SHRM SCP certifications.
And I understand the HR challenges you're faced with every day. Now let's get on with today's program.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, it's least to say that Lori is just super unqualified. You know, she shouldn't be here at all.
Well, and hopefully that's a little more interesting than you having to listen to me talk about the fact that, yes, I went to college. Yes, I did. So anyway, hope everybody enjoyed that little bit of our background. Should we jump right into it, Austin? I forgot, or do we have something else?
I've got one other thing or two other things, and then we'll get into
the
main
your trivia. Yes.
Yeah. First off, I want to say also I missed a very important person, and Talia Hansen is our community manager for the day. Talia, thank you so much for being here.
Always. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody.
Talia will be managing and communicating and talking with you guys. So any chat conversations, we'll probably try to jump in as well, but Talia is your person for that. So she is here for your questions. So we're going to do a quick brain teaser. And as far as I understand, we've got a little bit, not just HR on the line, but a prize on the line. So Lori, I believe you've got a couple book prizes. Can you explain what that is about?
Yeah, well, the most fun is the one you just saw. It's called the HR Stress Buster, and it is a grown-up activity book for HR people. It's got coloring pages and crosswords and word searches and all sorts of fun things. Chelsea, have you not seen it? I know Talia's seen it. Anyway, it's tons of fun. We're going to give it away to the first two people to answer the two questions. So 4 total winners.
Awesome. Okay. So use the chat. That's what we're hoping to do here. So the first two people, I've got 2 questions going on. So the first 2 people to answer from their perspective will get the prize. So we got 4 books going out. There's nothing like me talking while there's just an image of me on the screen. So I hope you have enjoyed that as much as I have. But we've got the brain teaser, this next section here for you. So question 1, let's get into it. So again, first 2 people to answer here from your perspective. Raise your hand or just a comment if AI has touched a hiring decision at your organization in the last 12 months.
Ooh, oh man, if people are so fast. I have anxiety watching this.
You can just type something ahead of time and just get it in there as soon as possible. So from a national standpoint, so really how many of you have actually documented this too, especially the people that answered this? Are you documenting any AI interaction with the hiring process? Because we're gonna be talking about that today and how important that is. 83% of companies plan to use AI to screen resumes in 2025, yet most had no documentation policy for that, which is a compliance nightmare to my understanding. So Lori will explain that later. All right, Talia, you got our 2 winners?
I do. We have got Jessica and Tamar. If you could both provide your last names so we can find you on our list and get connected with you to get those books to you, that would be perfect.
Cool. Yeah, and I can also find people through the list, but last names would be incredible to make sure there's not 2 of you. All right, question 2. You guys ready? Ready to type this in? Yep. Question is, has anyone on this call accidentally become a multi-state employer in the last 2 years?
The word is accidentally. Make sure. Oh, and I love all you people who said no. Yeah. We'll talk about that.
Every decision I make is informed and strategic. What are you talking about?
Right. Of course, Austin.
So nearly 1 in 4 job postings in Q4 2025 were hybrid or remote, and especially the remote ones, you could hire someone when you're working in a state that you didn't plan for. And so now you've got a compliance obligation that you didn't know you're going to have. So all right, those are the quick highlights, and Lori is going to really expand on this. Let's do the 2 winners real quick, Talia.
Yes, we have Kristen Brown and Chris Rezak.
Awesome. Congratulations, guys. We will get your information, email you, and get a book over to you. So well done.
Perfect. And Sophia, thanks for asking that question. We are going to talk about it when we get into the heart of the program. So I promise I'm making a note to make sure you get your answer.
Awesome. All right. Well, Lori, you're steering the ship now, my friend.
Great. So let's run with it. And as Chelsea said, I am with her in that going to these webinars and getting all this leadership information, it's interesting and it's cerebral. We today are going to talk about stuff you can go back and start doing this afternoon. We're going to talk about what you have to be aware of from a compliance standpoint and how to get it done. So, although I'm not a lawyer, I often say I could play one on TV when it comes to employment law. The difference between me is I take what we all know the law is, and I'm going to help you translate it into how we need to get it done at work as HR professionals. So, this is my opening thought, and it is so true, everyone. We can do everything we know is right, and you will still get sued. There are enough plaintiff attorneys out there that will just try to throw something at you. And so, what you have to do is know what you know in your heart you're doing right. And if you have to respond to things, you have a logical business way to respond to them. Compliance is not about perfection. Unfortunately, there are still a lot of gray areas in compliance. Everything is not written into the rule book. It's really about you being ready to tackle whatever comes to you and understanding what areas of compliance are going to apply to that situation. The landscape has really changed, and it's why it has made it so hard this year, but last year and next year to come. The biggest is that things are changing so fast. They're passing new rules, and a lot of what we do in HR really has more to do with legal precedent than what's actually written in the law books. And what that means is that every time a case is decided, we in HR start saying, well, how could that impact us? What should we do to change? And that is legal precedent. So we have to watch that very closely. As Austin started out, technology is influencing so many decisions we're making today. And it's causing things back to that rapid idea to just happen so quickly. Number three, thanks to Austin for that great brain teaser, working without state lines. We used to have very clear definitions of where we worked. We now have employees moving all over the place before we know it. We have hiring managers deciding that they're going to hire an intern who might go to college in your local area, but is going to work remotely from home in North Dakota this summer. Now you have to comply with that. So that's why I said we're going to talk a little more about all those who added no to say that you unexpectedly worked in different states. And then finally, HR has spent the last 10 or 15 years wanting to get that seat at the table. Well, now that you're there, it's a lot harder. You have to participate. You better have those smart answers ready in that management meeting when they ask you those questions. And there are a lot of compliance things that go through the intersection of ethics and compliance, the values of your organization. So now that you've got that seat at the table, there's a lot more work to be done. We try to reframe compliance when I talk to people about it, that it's not about perfection, as I said. It's not about ultimate control, because when you are still just one part of the management team, You often have to advise them on compliance and they go do what they're going to do. So it can't totally be about control. But what I believe we as HR people have to do is be able to defend the decision making. And I'm going to give you a perfect example of an email I just sent this morning. And it said to someone, I have told you multiple times this is not how I would go about this. This does not conform to what I think our obligation is. But at the end of the day, the decision is yours. And then I would save those emails
Right.
for for your own personal. I have worked with many HR people that are getting a level of frustration with their organization that they're really deciding if this is going to be a fit for them. And when you get to that point, I encourage you to send them to your Gmail as well, so that you have proof that you gave the right advice. Today, we're really going to talk about the major risk areas. This is not really a compliance webinar where I'm going to go through the basics. We're going to talk a lot about making practical HR judgment and how to defend your decisions. So hopefully that will set us all up. Anything else people are dying to hear about, feel free to throw it in the chat. If you see me looking elsewhere, I'm sort of keeping an eye on the chat. But I know Talia will do that for us as well. So perfect. So what are those big topics for 2026? I don't think this is going to surprise anyone, but let's go to the first one. AI. And we've talked about it already. It is embedded in your processes. And the biggest issues we have with AI in terms of policy writing is that we don't even know what to put. I mean, to be perfectly honest, this has really been around for the masses, 18 months? I love when people say, well, we don't allow ChatGPT, so we just block it on our computer. How many of you think that really works and what your employees are doing?
They're
That's
downloading it on their own and they're doing it wherever they,
it's
yeah. They are not listening to that, Lori.
I mean, right. If you say to someone you can't, I was at a board meeting the other day and they were trying to bounce around some ideas. I'm like, well, let's just see what ChatGPT. I mean, right. Natalie, they don't even have to disconnect from your VPN. They'll just pick up their cell phone and find it. So, and right, Marcia, it isn't the only AI. Yeah, Natalie's saying she does that. She just picks up her phone. So we're using it in everything we do. I used it to come up with the best logo for my family NCAA bracket. Yes, I agree with you, Talia. We love Natalie's honesty. We're using it in everything. And probably the two biggest places are communications and recruiting tools. And so I'd love to ask those of you who said you're using AI in recruiting, how are you using it in recruiting? I'd be very curious to see that in the chat if you can share it with us. And I've worked with my membership group on writing an AI policy that we can all have and is in our handbook. And if anybody wants that, I'll be happy to share it with you. But the truth of the matter is 2/3 of it sort of says, and things to come in the future. And, anything we don't know of today. So anyone's who's saying, yes, please, at the end of this, we're going to give you my email address. I'll ask you to email me because it's just hard for me to keep track as I'm jabbering away up here. Interview screening tools, perfect. Oh, I love this. Oh, the doctor used it. Good for, that's back to Natalie. Why not these days say, I'm not totally sure. Let me check with ChatGPT. So job descriptions, job postings, absolutely. I do all those things. And the issue is really around the whole confidentiality of what your employees are putting out there, and having a policy to stop that from happening. Okay, let's see our next big thing for 20, because we could talk about AI all day and we only have about 30 minutes. So Austin, next one would be great. So here are some of the compliance risks. I think we talked about a few of these. I'm hoping you know this. But I promised Sophia what we would do for documenting AI. What we need to be doing from a compliance standpoint is documenting how you're using AI. So, for example, if we are using AI to write a job description, have a policy, and it can be a 2-sentence policy, but have a policy that says no AI generated job description will go out in the organization without a human reviewing it for bias information. Bullet number 2. And that we're sure that the AI is giving us back something that is not creating disparate impact, which is bullet number 3. And what that means is, for those of you who don't know, disparate impact is, if you studied for your certification, you would know it, but it means that on the surface, we have a policy that doesn't appear to discriminate, but it actually does discriminate when you look at it. And I'm going to give you a really fast example, but we're never going to get through this. So I'm going to give you a fast example. A lot of people use AI to find candidates. This happens in engineering, where you put in your top 10 engineers. So let's say you put in their resumes. Many engineers tend to be men, right? So if you, or people maybe you hired 20 years ago, you put in 10 resumes, 2 are female, 8 are men, and you say to AI, I want candidates that look like this pool I gave you back. They are going to give you back mostly men because you put in mostly men. Okay. So that's what disparate impact is. All right. And so, Sophia, what we want to do is anything we're using AI for, not to write an internal email, you don't have to have that, but any decision that we're making using AI, we want to have that documented. So hopefully that makes sense. So let's go on to the next slide. Sophia, put in if you want more. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. This is both precedent and because of the change in our political leadership. And everybody's saying, oh, we can't have DEI anymore. Yes, we can. It is still the law that we treat all employees equally. Okay. That's really what Title VII of the Civil Rights Act is all about. There's a case that we're going to talk about on the next slide, which basically says that Title VII protects everybody equally. So you can still do diversity as long as it's job related, consistent, and neutral, and that you're saying we want everybody to have the same opportunities. So if we go on to the next slide, I'll talk about this lawsuit. Many of you probably heard about this last year. It's Ames versus the state of Iowa. And I'm not going to go deep into it because we're a little short on time. But what it was a white person, I'm sorry to say it that way, but who sued. No, actually, I think I'm getting 2 cases mixed up, so I'm not going to say it. But the Supreme Court basically said Title VII applies to everyone. We used to say poor Austin, I don't know exactly how old you are, but if you were a white male who's 35 years old, you have like no protection. Because when I came up through HR, we used to say it was race, creed, color, sex, and national origin were the people who were protected. This court came out and said, no, everybody's protected under Title VII. And even if you're in the majority, you still have rights. So let's move on, because again, we could deep dive into this. But if you're not familiar with Ames versus Iowa, you might want to do a quick chat GPT and just say, give me 3 sentences on what Ames versus Iowa. It's basically these 3 bullet points, but you might want to do that. Okay. Pay transparency, huge new thing. About 25 of our states now require you to post salary in a job ad. That's good and bad. It, obviously it helps you eliminate people that are looking for much higher or much lower. My problem is often that if I post, I just had a client ask me about posting a position for an intern and saying the pay rate would be $20 to $30 an hour. And I said, well, that's fine as long as you realize every candidate is going to expect to get $28 or $29 an hour. Nobody thinks they're your $20 applicant. They all think they're your $29 applicant. And so you have to be careful. It goes deeper than just a number. You've got to be very cautious on remote roles. And we're going to talk about compensation and remote roles in a minute. Be careful about multi-state rules. So if you're saying a job is remote, now you have to comply with the job posting roles in Colorado. So be very careful. And then the biggest issue is internal equity exposure. Because if you are obligated to put a salary out there, you better be darn well sure that everyone internally already makes that amount of money. Or you're going to have everybody at your door saying, excuse me, but I've been a customer service person for 3 years. I get great reviews and I still don't make the amount of money you're advertising. And it will happen. Job descriptions. This is, a tool for compliance because anytime you get sued, the first thing they're going to ask you is, let me see a copy of your job description. When was the last time anyone reviewed all the or put in the chat, anytime you reviewed all the job descriptions in your company to make sure they were still accurate? Put maybe, yay, Amy, this year, somebody's laughing 1 year ago. Randall, working on it, keep going. Good. So most people are either working on it. Carrie, the problem with doing it as a position comes open is that I get most worried about that person who's been in a job 6 years and we haven't looked at it. And between COVID and technology, almost every one of our jobs have changed. In some regard, they haven't changed dramatically, but it looks like a lot of people do it. So I would really encourage you to do it every year, once a year. And the way I do it is that I send them out with performance reviews and ask the manager and the employee, as part of your performance review conversation, talk about the job description and let me know what needs to be updated. You, as the HR person, do not have to do this for every single job. Let them do it. They know what the job is better than you. Katie, it may be time to audit those and get them updated for sure. If you want to throw in the chat, what compliance risk feels most pressing to you in 2026? We'd love to see those and see if we can work it into the rest of our conversation. We
You
have
know
about
what else, Lori? We could have you back on another monthly webinar with, if there's a theme, we can create a specific presentation just for that.
That's great. Oh, Natalie, we are getting to Fair Labor Standards Act for sure. Margie, I think that's how you say it. Kelly, I do not have unique job descriptions for every person. So I don't want to dig into this too far. You are welcome to email me and we can talk about it. But for example, I work with a nonprofit that has giving officers, and every giving officer has an area of expertise. We don't get into that in the job descriptions. All the job descriptions talk about is their relationship with our grantee partner. It talks about the fiduciary responsibility. It talks about bringing information to the board, that kind of thing, regardless of their client. I-9 compliance, I think we're going to talk about in a minute too. So let's go on to the next one. I think we're going to hit a lot of the multi-state. Well, Crystal, here you go. The multi-state exposure has become unbelievable. This tax season, I was involved because I didn't do it, so I won't take credit for it, in reissuing 4 W-2s to employees because they moved and never told us. And we had one guy who emailed me last Friday. You'll all love this. Oh, in 2024, I lived in Missouri, but in 2025, I moved to California, and I forgot to tell you, I'm meeting with my accountant today. Now, don't forget, we're talking about April 10th. Can I please get an adjusted W-2 by Monday so that I can file my taxes on time? And you know what? I had an associate say to me, sounds like his lack of planning is not your emergency. And I thought, that is perfect. And I said, yes, everybody's going, oh, we had that issue. Sounds familiar. And I said, good news. The IRS allows you to file for an extension. And I would strongly recommend you do that because no, you won't have your corrected W-2 by Monday. I mean, I'm sorry. So, and this is where the first question that Austin asked, you have to be really careful about people doing this where they just go and live somewhere and forget if you're in a remote environment, obviously. The other issue that we've seen come out of COVID is that managers will hire people and allow them to work in different places and have no understanding of the amount of responsibility that brings to HR in terms of setting yourself up in an entirely new state. So, what I recommend you do, if through COVID you now have employees all over that you may not have planned for, get together a list of states that you are registered in, and then tell managers these are the only places we can hire from. There is nothing illegal about doing that. These are the places we're registered because it is expensive to keep filing in all these different states. And say that unless I, as HR, approve it, we're not going into any new states. But you're welcome to hire where we already are. Whether you like it or not, you own the compliance for all those state laws once one person moves there. And here are all the things to be careful of once you've hired someone in a new state. This is just the beginning, obviously, but these are the things. If you have one employee in a state, these are the things that you for sure want to look up and make sure you know. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Randall asked the question, can we do the flip? Of course. If you're already registered in 36 states, you can say do not hire from these places. Now, I would start my list with, once upon a time, we would say I would start my list with California. Let me tell you right now, California, Illinois, New York, Pennsylvania's creeping in. There are so many states that are so unbelievable, but Illinois and New York are almost as bad as California. And I am originally from Chicago, so I watch Illinois pretty closely. They're coming up with one new law after another. It's crazy. All right, somebody asked about Fair Labor Standards Act. Here we go. Exempt and non-exempt employees. Those are the people that fall under the Fair Labor Standards Act. We need to be very careful. Managers don't want to track time. It's that simple. They want everybody to be exempt so that they don't have to approve time. Yeah, Randall put in a list. Oh, yeah, Colorado, Lori. You're absolutely right. Colorado for sure. But whether or not somebody is exempt under the law is clearly defined in the Fair Labor Standards Act. So in hybrid roles, we have to be especially careful because what do they really have responsibility for? We have a lot of people that are team leads, mentors, maybe supervisors, but they don't rise to the level of actually being a manager. And the reason that I am so firm about job descriptions are because of these evolving duties. With technology and hybrid work, people are taking on all sorts of new things. And half the time, we don't even know what they're sitting at home doing. It's good. They're doing good work that their manager might be asking them to do, but it may be moving them from a non-exempt to an exempt role. And if somebody has a manager that is such a micromanager, it may move them from exempt to non-exempt the same way. So you really want to be looking at, and Natalie, if you had a specific question about Fair Labor Standards Act, now that we're here, go ahead and throw it in the chat. Austin, I don't know if it's the next slide or this one used to be, no, so go back one. We lost something that I'm going to put it in the chat. Make sure that you are familiar with fact sheet, that should say 17A, not the number 3. It's just 17A. 17A is the fact sheet from the IRS that very clearly explains to you who's exempt and who's non-exempt. And when I have a manager come into my office and say, can't we make Susie exempt or salaried? They don't know the language, exempt and non-exempt. Can't we make her salaried because I'm really tired of tracking her time? I hand them fact sheet 17A and I say, please circle 3 things that will allow her to be exempt and then come back to me because probably they don't exist. Oh, Susan, I have got a great resource for virtual labor posters. Let's see if we get to that later. Otherwise, I can give it to you. I found it at last year's SHRM conference. They're amazing. So yes, Randall is correct. Under the law, everyone is non-exempt unless they meet the criteria on fact sheet 17A. Period. End of conversation. Now, here's the exception. It's not really an exception. Here's the way to get around it. When you're tired of having the fight with that manager, somebody can be salaried non-exempt. salary and hourly is not a legal classification. Exempt and non-exempt are. Salary non-exempt means you get paid the same amount every week, but if you work over 40 hours a week, you are still entitled to overtime. So if you have those positions that really never work overtime and you're not that worried about it, you could make them salaried non-exempt as an option. Okay, let's go to the next one. So documentation. Documentation is as scary to do it as not to do it because of what these people will write down. So before anything comes up that you want to document, you have got to train your managers and talk about the language they're going to use and be very specific. Once an issue comes up, you want to make sure you've done a proper investigation. You aren't just taking one person's word and assuming that that's gospel. A proper investigation is going to start with a neutral third party, somebody, it doesn't have to be external and expensive. It can be somebody in your company, but somebody who's neutral to this situation. Having interviews. I love during an investigation to just walk around and see what's going on myself. You know, if somebody says this person's a jerk, I make it a point that week to walk through that department a number of times and see, are they a jerk to everybody? You know, are they da 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 da? And being consistent. So if one person comes in and makes a complaint or brings up an issue, are you doing that the exact same way as you would have for others? Or, you know, when this guy who's in your office 3 times a week and you are so annoyed with them and you just want to get them out of there already, you immediately jump to separation. But somebody else who rarely comes in and complains, you assume that their situation is more important or more valid, you know, those kinds of things. So just being consistent is really clear. And then once the issue is over, making sure you are retaining those documents. Do you have a secure place on SharePoint where nobody but you can access them? Are you giving a copy to the employees involved? What are you doing? And this is, again, even just having a document, a policy of how you're going to conduct and conclude an investigation is really clear so that you do it the same amount every time. And then finally, enforcement. If you say that somebody has to go to an all-day training session, have they gone? Have they completed it? Do you see a change in behavior? You know, if they were going to get a 3-day suspension, has that occurred? And I would, I'm about to say staple, but whatever, combine that documentation with your original investigation to show that's now been closed. And so those are some things in documentation. You know, this is no secret. This is where compliance breaks down. You know, you get busy and we don't have the investigation. Inconsistent notes. Maybe you're talking to one person and you write everything down. And with the next person, you get so engrossed in their story, you forget to take very good notes. Those sorts of things. Oversharing. You know, the hardest thing I have in an investigation, I don't really do investigations because it's hard for me to talk to somebody without telling them like what I've heard. And you have to be very good at that, which brings us to the next one, which is the skills of the investigator. Some people are very good at this. And so you want somebody who can do this and do it well. And finally, retaliation risk. Once somebody files a complaint and you investigate it, it's really hard, despite performance and everything else, to get rid of that person anytime in the near future, or it's going to look like retaliation. One of, not one of, the biggest complaint to the EEOC that people file is for retaliation. That's the number one issue, that somebody brought something up and then they lost their job 2 months later. So they may or may not have ever been discriminated against, but the fact of retaliation is what the really big issue is. So if we can go to the next slide, can we have interviews over? Yes, Katie, I think that that's great. Oh, thank you, Randall, for putting that in there. Katie, absolutely. You know, these days, that is the advantage to doing an investigation. Now, here's the problem. There are some things you don't want written down. You don't want recorded. And if you have AI doing the note taking and the person you're interviewing knows that AI did the note taking, there's no, giving legal thought to what you include and don't include in your written notes. And so I would just think about that and be aware of it. We don't have to write every single thing down in our notes. So this, I think, Austin, we pretty much covered. So why don't we skip on? Oh, and perfect timing. Let me throw this over to Chelsea, because I know the first time I met Chelsea, I was blown away by what I didn't know about legal liability and health plans. So I think you can run and take it over from here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So really quick, as ERISA employers, which I think the bulk of you are, right? If you're subject to ERISA, you may or may not know that the same fiduciary liability that you have on the retirement side as a plan sponsor actually pertains to you on your health and welfare programs as well. Unfortunately, there have been dozens and dozens and dozens of lawsuits. And really what kicked it off was in January 2024, Lewandowski versus Johnson & Johnson. And basically it was a plan beneficiary suing the plan sponsor for their choice on the PBM, the pharmacy benefit manager, which is one part of a health program, right? And that this plan beneficiary, along with many others in the lawsuit, paid way too much out of pocket due to conflicted decision making, a lack of due diligence, and a lack of a documented process for decision making. What's really interesting is that was the case that truthfully, my business partner and I have waited years and years and years for, because 10 years ago when we designed Ethos Benefits, it was knowing that this was going to happen. Health plan lawsuits were coming in the same way and fashion that they did on the 401k side, was about to hit plan sponsors on health and welfare. And it's much more dramatic because the out-of-pocket expenses and the financial impact to employees is significantly greater on poor decision-making on health and welfare than it is on retirement. So this was kind of that pinnacle case. And since then, it's just been a snowball effect. The attorneys are getting better at positioning these cases. They're going to be coming down market. Right now, it's huge companies, right? JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, these are literally hundreds of thousands of employees, but it is coming down market. And here's the deal. It's not necessarily about who you're hiring. It is, right? But it's about the documentation and the lack of a documentation process. So to go back to what Lori was saying about documentation, what's interesting is in all of these cases, it wasn't just the benefits committee. And if that's a new term for you and you do not have a benefits committee, let's please connect. I have charters, I have conflict of interest disclosure forms, acknowledge forms that I'm happy to share at no cost to everybody, so that you can get your committee started. And if you have a committee and you've never filled out conflict of interest disclosures, acknowledgements, or charters, please also hit me up. I'm happy to share those resources with you. All of the committee members, HR, CFO, anybody who's considered a fiduciary making any type of decision was personally named in these lawsuits. So that's where I find that a lot of human resources specifically don't know this. CFOs are used to the fiduciary liability. They deal so much with finances. They're accustomed to that language. but HR, and it was the prior head of Total Rewards. It was current head of Total Rewards. It was benefit managers, all levels being personally named in these lawsuits. So you might also be thinking, because Lori kind of mentioned this earlier, well, what if I'm bringing something to the table, right? Like, hey, I know that we're not making the right decisions on our health plan. We're spending way too much. We're not doing prudent decision making. We're not documenting anything. We're not checking if the fees of our vendors are reasonable. But I'm screaming from the rooftops and no one's listening to me. Document the emails that you're sending to your teams. You should have a fiduciary file. A fiduciary file, let's go to the next slide really quick. You want to have an entire structure around the documentation of your health and welfare decision making. And I highly recommend that you do this in the form of committee meetings quarterly. And here's an example. So at Ethos, we have this built into our framework for every single client. They have access to a fiduciary portal. This is the crux of our advising model. It's completely unconflicted. We don't take commission. We don't take bonuses. We don't take trips, all of that. We can truly evaluate vendors and sit alongside you as fiduciaries. If you don't have that current relationship, that's okay, but you have to understand that you are the fiduciary and you need to have a process like this in place if you don't have anybody that you can trust around you to walk you through it. So number one, you need to identify. And what that means is documenting every single plan decision. We stayed with our current carrier this year, even though there were other more competitive options for XYZ reason. It doesn't mean you need to pick the cheapest option. It doesn't mean that any decision is right or wrong. It's simply that we need to document the rationale behind it and how you're serving your plan participants in making that decision. Number two, part of ERISA is determining the reasonableness of fees for those that are working with you. Under ERISA and the CAA of 2021, all service providers, which means brokers, TPAs, PBMs, anybody in your little realm of benefits package needs to provide you a 408B2 compensation disclosure. And it's not enough for them to just give you, something on a piece of paper that says we make $100,000 a year. That's not enough. The 408B2 is very specific to ERISA, and it includes indirect compensation, direct compensation, and it lists out any potential conflicts of interest that they have to acknowledge, which I'm seeing all the time, by the way. Brokers that have arrangements with PBM consortiums and brokers that are getting lines of credit from the insurance companies that they are recommending to you. There are so many conflicts of interest in the health and welfare web, and you need to know about it in order to make a good decision and trust the information you're getting. Number three, evaluating. So how are you prudently looking? This whole idea of a no market year, like, oh yeah, if you close your eyes, just accept the renewal now and don't go to market, you are literally not doing your job as a fiduciary if you say yes to those type of no look renewals. And then documenting, record the rationale, record the meeting minutes, and put everything into a fiduciary file that you can access. Next month, I'm hosting a webinar specifically under ERISA. You have to monitor and hold your vendors accountable. How do you do that? I'm going to teach you next month. So our next webinar is about how to make a vendor scorecard, creating KPIs for every vendor in your health and welfare program. So it's not just 5 days before your renewal pops out, hey, do we like this vendor? Have they been doing a good job? No, every quarter on our quarterly committee meetings, we're going through our scorecard and we're assigning them a score, yes or no. So just to kind of go in line with everything that Lori's saying, in addition to all the other things that are on your million things of to-do lists and HR compliance, health plan lawsuits are real, they are coming, and if you've been ignoring it, you can't ignore it anymore.
Chelsea,
Lori, back to you.
We do have a question for you from Natalie. Is this in regards to public or private companies?
Both. So ERISA is not necessarily public or private. If you mean public in the sense of like government or school boards, those are obviously not, and churches are non-ERISA. So you wouldn't necessarily have to be, you're not going to be having to meet those specific ERISA guidelines, but the CAA legislation of 2021 and 2026 does apply to non-ERISA entities. But if you're public, as in like you're publicly traded, it's even more of a reason to have this process. I also want to add that when you have a process like this, guys, what ends up happening is that you make way better decisions financially, which also usually dramatically improves member outcomes. they're not mutually exclusive. You don't save money and people don't like the plan or they get unhealthy. It's actually the opposite. So even if you aren't subject to ERISA, there's no reason not to have a better decision-making framework.
Randall's asking if all of the documentation, including our committee charters, conflicts of interest, and fiduciary documentation, would include a template for decision making.
That's the framework. That's really the secret sauce. So, Randall, reach out to me. I can share with you basically like what I do with my clients as a template. But really, you probably want to go a little bit deeper than just the template. But yes, let's have a conversation. I'm happy to share whatever I have with you. Lori, we've got 3 minutes left. So I'm going to hand it back over to you. But thank you for the opportunity to share this really important piece of information.
And as I put in the chat, I met Chelsea and Donovan, her partner, and have been blown away. The beauty, and this, I am not paid to say this, the beauty of using Ethos Benefits, because I brought them into a client that I do a lot of consulting for, is that you don't have to think about it. They just do it. And then they explain it to you and you just sign, and then presto, they make sure it's all done and updated. So I strongly recommend you book a call with Chelsea and find out how you don't really have to worry about this. What else? Is there another slide, Austin? Oh, things, yes. To audit in 2026. We've talked about most of this. Your job descriptions, exempt classifications, who's living where, how you're using AI, health and welfare committee, which it sounds like lots of you are going to go ahead and do that. And then make sure in 2026 you have added some AI guidelines, even if not a policy, that your employee handbook has been updated. You've created some pay transparency language if you're in one of the states where you have to do that. And that you do have a procedure of how you're going to investigate something. It can be a one-pager. This stuff doesn't have to be War and Peace or a PhD volume, but a step-by-step how you're going to go ahead and do an investigation. And I think, and these are the 3 biggest risks to please stop ignoring. The informal practices that we're do all the time. Oh, we'll just do it for this employee this one time because we really like them. And undocumented decisions, the flip side of please always document, document, document. So we're going to leave that with some things that are still in store for 2026. Every H-1B lottery changes are coming. If those of you are, I don't know how many of you use it, so I won't go too deep there. But a lot of states have imposed AI laws, and now the federal government is trying to put one over that. We just have to watch it. The IRS continues to be concerned about independent contractors and gig worker classifications, data privacy and governance. The idea of policy whiplash is this idea in our government in Washington, D.C., that one president signs an executive order for something, the next president comes in and undoes it. Now the next president comes in and does it. It has nothing to do with who's in office. We in HR have whiplash from this. And then all the lawsuits that Chelsea's been talking about. So, I know this sounds scary. We can certainly do another one at the end of the year, but that's up to you guys. Well, we've gone through a lot of Q&A, obviously.
Yeah.
There, in addition to Chelsea's email, I know Talia's been copying down all of you that want her info. If you want to email me directly, you're welcome to. But stay on half a second because we have Sherman HRCI numbers. Oh, no, they're coming
They're
up.
gonna come out in an email.
Right? Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
the follow-up email will include all of the items that we talked about today, along with your continuing education numbers for SHRM and HCI and the fiduciary framework materials. I'm just going to go ahead and include a lot of those in there as well.
And I will include the name of the remote vendor, poster vendor. We are not promoting that person. We don't get paid by that person. It's just somebody I found that works well. So we're happy to share them with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for attending today. I'm sorry we went a couple minutes over. We owe you 2 minutes, everyone. Thank you so much, and thank you, Lori, for joining us today. I appreciate you.
You're amazing,
Great.
Lori. Every time. I'm blown away.
Tons of fun as always. Loved being with you guys too.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye.